Hello and welcome to the Marketplace. Today's program will focus on young professionals out there. As the world of work changes amid the demands of the global pandemic, we want to have a discussion on 3 ingredients to climb up the corporate ladder. They are mentorships, connections, and career growth. Of course, my panel includes Irene Asare, a global HR expert who's just been picked to head the BBC's HR department. This is big. Also, do I have Nixon Amwa-Iwa, an HR expert and managing director of Calvin Clay People Development. The discussion begins after this break, so do stay for that.
Hello, my name is Evans Mensah, and you can relive all the fun and excitement on Top Story, Newsnight, and of course, Ghana Connect via podcast. All you need to do is to log on to my Joy Online/podcast. Search for your favorite show and relive the moment. Joy 99.7 FM, your radio for designing listeners.
Joy 99.7.
Hello and welcome. My name is Charles Aite. I must add that we shall be opening the phone lines for your questions to our panel, so please stay with us on this. My panel includes Irene Asare, a global HR expert who's just been picked to head BBC News HR department. Hello, Irene, and of course, we're glad to see you, and I believe you're doing well.
Hi.
Great.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us as well. So also joining us is Nixon Amwa-Iwa. He joins me in studio. He's an HR expert and managing director of Calvin Clay People Development. And as you might have known, the discussion this afternoon is based on you, our professionals out there who are wondering how best to climb the corporate ladder when it comes to mentorships, connections, and career growth. So I want to start off with you, Irene, because over the past few years, we have seen massive, growth in your own spec, despite the various, introductions you've been making, the impact you've been having on young professionals out there. Walk us through your journey, through your personal career ladder.
Sure, thank you very much for the question. My journey has been an interesting one, very eventful at the same time, full of hard work. I started my career in the UK, and I really grew, if you like, from the entry level right through to a manager. Before I left the UK, I spent most of my career within human resources. And along the way, I had many mentors, many great line managers and support. I also was qualified within the Chartered Institute of Human Resources. And then I think my management career, my senior executive management career really grew when I came onto the continent, which was about 11 years ago. And I joined an organization which I'm sure we're all familiar with, Vodafone, and then I went on to Standard Bank and so forth, and then Tullow, and I'm about to move on. And so throughout my career, I've had challenging scenarios to deal with. I've had many opportunities to grow, to develop, to learn on the job, to learn from other people who are very seasoned and professional, and of course, doing the job. So that's just a very brief, run through of my career. I mean, it's been illustrious because it's been across the African continent, not just Ghana, but Southern Africa as well, and parts of West Africa, as well as Europe. So I've had a lot of industry experience as well, everything from telecoms, banking, oil and gas. So I'm really well-rounded in terms of all of the exposure. And I always say, within the HR realm, there isn't much that I haven't seen or I haven't dealt with as an HR practitioner.
Interesting, because I'm picking 2, factors from your submission. The fact that you went through the entry level and the fact that you have mastered the art of human resource development. It begs the question, though, for many young professionals out there who would want to climb the ladder but miss specific steps in their career plan. How do you respond to this new trend, I should say, of people not wanting to enter through the entry level but wanting to skip to other corporate levels?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that the reality is that we need to know what we are doing and we need to have some level of exposure. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong that maybe you haven't met the entry level and you've jumped straight through. But within our career, it's very difficult for you to say, I've graduated, I've come from university and I'm going straight into a management position. At that point, you are inexperienced. What is important is let's look at the value of work that you're doing and the contribution that you're making. I find that a lot of us are very, very focused on, I don't want an entry level, I'm a graduate, or I'm well seasoned, I don't want an entry level. But the reality is we need to understand the basics, right? We need to have some level of appreciation and skill to be able to do that work. And for me, I don't look at it as entry, but I look at it as it's important as my foundation. We need to build our foundation, a bit like a house. We all know that the foundation needs to be built correctly. And that's what I would encourage us to do. And then once you've built your foundation, you can add to it. You can add to it.
You should build a foundation. Very solid points there. Let me come in studio and engage you, Nixon. Because as Irene rightly stated, most of the young professionals would want to jump the steps, not really want to go through the normal steps. But you're also an HR professional, of course, the Managing Director of Calvin Clay Development. Walk us through what your organization has been doing to really prep up young professionals for the job market.
Thank you, Charles. And let me say a good afternoon to our viewers and listeners. We have been doing a lot. And I think, like Irene said, we have been looking at how we develop people from the scratch. I think the challenge with young career-minded people is that they always want to go vertical.
Exactly.
They're moving up without looking at the spread. So in terms of developing breadth, in terms of developing broadly, they tend not to have the appetite for it. All that they're looking for is, there's a manager position, I'm going for it. So how do you coach and mentor such people to appreciate the fact that at the top, you'll be looking broadly. And for that matter, you need to really develop the skills whilst you are down, to look at all the key skills that you need to be at the top. And for us in Calvin Clay, that is one core thing that we do. We provide 4 main services: executive recruitment, coaching and mentoring, leadership development and training, and then HR advisory. And what we are talking about falls into our executive, in terms of our leadership development, and then coaching and mentoring. So as we speak, there is a program that we are launching to develop HR practitioners for the future. And this is a program that we started in 2018, and we have been doing in conjunction with other institutions for some time now.
Well, so let's talk about mentorship, because Irene out there is a very influential woman in her own space, regarding the fact that she is, about to, head the BBC News, HR department. This is big. But the question remains, for those of us watching on television, those of us wanting to connect with our so-called mentors, there is often this gap, regarding the intent and the action. How do we bridge this gap of meeting mentors that we think can help us through our career ladder?
Yeah, I think it's very important that if you are going into mentorship, you consider that. Mostly people interchange coaching, mentoring. So for us to be on the
difference between coaching
and mentoring. For us to be on the same platform in our discussion, let me say that mentoring, I will approach mentoring from the dimension of a senior professional helping a junior professional or less experienced professional to develop professionally and personally. And that is what is mentoring. That's what mentoring is.
So that could happen within any work environment.
Any work environment.
That could be my mentor.
Exactly. And coaching would be more like having a skilled person who may not even be in the same line of profession, but using the skill to help you to realize your potential.
So if I want Irene to be a mentor, in this context, she cannot be a mentor. She can be a coach.
She can be a coach and a mentor. Irene, don't forget, Irene is a business leader, and Irene is an HR professional. So if an HR person says, I want Irene as a mentor, you can have Irene as a mentor.
Because they both align with
exactly within that same space.
But how do we bridge this gap? Because oftentimes we see our mentors or coaches up there and we find ourselves below. Irene, I want to bring you in this one. How do we link up with our mentors or our coaches, bridging that particular gap?
I think it's really important, because I find that a lot of people that I've spoke to or approached see somebody from afar and say, oh, I think they would be a very good mentor. I think it's important when you have a mentor, you've got to have some level of chemistry.
Okay.
You've got to really identify why it is that you want that particular mentor. It might be you're very happy with their career path, you see the way they approach things, the way they've done their career. The view for me is, approach that individual, but be very clear on what you want out of the relationship. Because a lot of the time people say, oh, Irene, I want you to be my mentor, but they're not very clear on what the relationship is and what you actually want from the relationship. So I think there's a point for a mentee. You need to have clarity. I'm looking to grow. I'm looking to develop. I need this particular help. When you were doing your career, Irene, you chanced on this when you were a middle manager. What did you do? I'm now managing people. I need to think differently about how I do it. You need to understand why you're going in. And it's not just, I think sometimes people feel that it's a glorified position. At the moment, everybody has a mentor, but nobody is very clear on why you need a mentor and what that mentoring relationship will do for you, because this is a very potentially long-term relationship.
So do you choose your mentor or your mentor chooses you?
I think, it depends. Our program, the HR mentoring program, we pair mentors with mentees.
Okay.
We will have a look at your background, your experience, your industry, your expertise, and we will find that match. Equally, if you're not in a program and you choose, you can also go out and look for a mentor, and you can approach someone and ask them, would you consider? And you need to tell them why you would, and you can also find your mentor.
Right. So Nixon, how do you make the approach? Is it through in-person, digital tools? How do you manage your way out in the approach to meeting up with your mentor and even making the request for them to mentor you?
So that it's a mix of both.
Okay.
You can either do through LinkedIn or any of the digital tools or social platforms, or you can do in person. I would distinguish between being in an organization and using an internal resource, in which case it's always easier to approach and have a discussion about it. But be clear, like Irene said, what you want to get out of the relationship. It's not, I just want you to be my mentor. But in the digital, in using the digital or outside your work settings, that tends to be a little difficult.
Okay.
So you may be approaching somebody who does not know you, who does not know what you've done, and you are saying, I want you to be my mentor. I do get that often through my LinkedIn. And my question to them is, what do you want to achieve with the mentoring relationship? What are your goals? And until you are able to establish that clearly, the mentor may not be in a position to say, I will or I cannot. The challenge mostly has been the time of the mentor being able to have the time to work with the mentee. Because mostly these are, if you see the seasoned executives, they are there and every single person wants them to be their mentor. So until you are very clear and you are very decisive and concise about exactly what you want from them, when you approach, you may not be able to get what you want from them. So always be clear about what you want to get out of the mentorship. And then once you approach, let them know what you have done, where you intend to go. And 9 out of 10, most mentors will say, okay, this is a person I want to go with.
9 out of 10, regarding if we go by your approach. Exactly. So if you're watching us currently, this is a clear discussion we're having in the marketplace, a special edition where we're touching on how to climb up the corporate ladder through mentorships, connections, and career growth. And for those of you watching who might want to be part of this discussion, asking your questions to the HR experts that we have with us, you can join us via Zoom. The details are displayed under the screen. Also, can you give us a phone call? That's 0302 221, that's 030-221-1691 or 030-221-1692 for us to get your questions so we could pose them to HR experts joining us right here. But I want us to move to the aspect of connections. Because once again, I want to bring in Irene here because you have so much, to this particular topic regarding connections. How do you build your connections from the space of people that you barely know to the space of people that you truly know and trust so that they could help you in forming out the career path that you want to build? So I wanted to start with this level of how we could build our connections around people we barely know but are influential.
Absolutely. I think, again, I think Nixon touched on it. You know, LinkedIn, we've got these social media tools nowadays, is a great place to start. And one of the things that I would advise, often we go straight in with the email and it's always, can you do something for me? My advice there is, you know, look at what the individual, 9 times out of 10, the individual is posting something, they're writing articles, they're communicating with you, engage in their communication, like their work, see what they do, have that level of engagement. And then over time, it becomes easier to approach that person and talk with them. Nowadays, we are kind of meeting face to face every now and again. There'll be events that you can also attend where afterwards you can ask a question. You can go up to the individual and make a conversation. I think it's important that we are in a business where we are human relationships. You know, relationships are really important. Have that connection, have that conversation, and strike up the conversation that is mutually beneficial to the two parties.
Well,
so those are some of the aspects that I think you can look at doing.
All right. So Nixon, of course, how do you also build connections around people that you know within a space that could help you climb up the ladder? Because Irene just spoke about those who you barely know, but if you could touch on those who we know.
Okay, so in terms of, let me put it in business context, we will normally say networking than just connections. So in terms of how you build with people who know, you should, if I know you already, chances are that we may have spoken.
Exactly.
If we haven't spoken, introducing myself to you and getting an acquaintance with you tends to be a little easier than somebody you haven't met at all. So you must be clear once you go establish the relationship. It could be a topic, like Irene said, do a bit of a research about the individual. Find out what the person likes, and then pick a conversation in that order. Once you pick a conversation in that order, it's easier to flow, and then you begin to have a conversation, and from that onwards, it becomes a relationship. You should always be mindful that you are not going into the relationship to only take, but to add value to the person as well. So it's quite
important that you raise this issue.
Exactly.
Because oftentimes, we have this challenge of, I mean, the person is up there, so what exactly does he or she need from me?
Exactly.
You know, this particular question in the minds of many young professionals out there, how do we address this? How do you tie into the instincts of your mentor or your connection?
Charles, there's something we call reverse mentoring, which is the opposite of what an actual mentoring is supposed to be, an experienced person mentoring a less experienced person. In reverse mentoring, it's the other way around. So mostly in our mentoring relationship, we will say there's a mutual benefit to all. There's always something for the most experienced person to learn from you. In connections, it may even be at par. If I say connections, it's not about mentoring. We may be at par, but for the fact that I am connecting with you and using it as part of my social capital, it's very important that I also identify things that you can benefit from. And if I identify those things, it's up to me to also bring them to you so that you identify with it. For the sake, if you bring it to the mentorship world, where you have an experienced person mentoring a less experienced person, you could have, I mean, when it comes to technology, we all know the youth are better with technology, use of technology, than the very old. So when you
that's debatable.
It's debatable. I mean, mostly. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a rule, but I mean, most of the time that is what you tend to find. So there are some aspects that the youth may find or may know or may be acquainted to that the most experienced person may not. But there's always a learning point for somebody. You cannot say that person can learn nothing from you or can benefit in no sort of form from me. So always identify that one thing or two things that you think that person that you have a relationship with or which you've created a relationship with can benefit from you and try and offer that.
Great. So Irene, now that you have established the mentor, you have gained the connection or the network, how do you sustain the relationship?
Is very, very important. A lot of the times we establish the relationship and then we think it's done. This is where the mentee really needs to put the work in. Establish every month, every 4 weeks, every 2 weeks, we're going to have an engagement. That could be a 45-minute discussion, Zoom nowadays, or in person, and that you have that discussion. If there is any homework or if there's anything that's coming out of that, you follow up on what you agreed that you will do, that you're constantly reasonably engaging. What you also don't want is to over-engage to the point where every second you're ringing your mentor up, right? So you need to make sure that you agree what the rules of engagement are. We'll meet every month. We'll talk for about 45 minutes. If I've got any queries, may I call you? May I send an email? It's really important to establish that. And please do the work. So if we've agreed on something, it is down to you as the mentee to do the work as well.
Great. Well, so we're going to be ending with the very last part of our discussion, which is personal, that's career growth or personal growth. I want to find out from you, Nixon, because you have interacted with so many, professionals under your organization. What are some of the things that young professionals are doing which, is really impeding their personal growth?
So there are quite a few, and I won't say young professionals. I think we all make those mistakes in early part of our career. I think we see career as a vertical thing, as I mentioned. And for that matter, once you get into an organization, it's about just the top. But we forget that in developing a career, it can take any shape, any form. We always say have a career plan, but you find out most people that you speak to that they don't even have a career plan. They just put themselves at the job and they are expecting to get at the top. A number of them also tend to rely on the business to develop them instead of taking the initiative, the ownership to develop themselves. So what you hear when you interact with them is, my business is not developing me. And I ask them, what have you done to develop yourself? If you ask them anything about development, the concept that you find is formal training. I have not gone on training. But development goes way beyond training. Even the job that you do, the projects that you seek to be on, all helps to develop you. So as a young career person, you should be looking at those opportunities which can bring skills and add knowledge onto you so that you develop. So have a career plan. Make sure you are broadening yourself, not just a linear. And make sure after broadening yourself, you take initiative and ownership of your own development and then pursue per the plan. It may not always go according to plan, because that is what tends to happen. Right. When you speak to most leaders, they will tell you, in fact, it was never in my plan to be where I am. So it may not always according to plan, but your plan must be flexible enough to be able to attract, adjust, and then be able to get you to where you want to go.
I think we have Martina from Nungua who joins us via phone. Martina, we're grateful that you joined us on the marketplace. Your question, please.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Martina, your question, please.
Right. So I just want to know, how do I stand out? Because as an influential person, you would have a lot of people wanting to be your mentees and all that. So how do I stand out for the person to actually have time for me so that he or she will be able to mentor me?
Great. Thank you very much for your question. I want to pose that to Irene. How does she stand out as a young professional?
Sure. Proactivity. Please, Martina, be absolutely proactive. If you're very interested in the mentee relationship, I think I mentioned some tips around if the person has a social media or they speak somewhere or they're engaging in some way, follow their work, know a little bit about them, be proactive, come with questions to some of your challenges, but start to think through what you think some of the solutions are. Make sure that it's a beneficial relationship. The way in which you communicate with your potential mentee will give you an indication or give them an indication of the type of individual that you are. Give them a view on your background, how you've grown your career and what you're trying to look for in a mentee as well, in a mentor, sorry.
Great. So I think we're having an issue there connecting with Irene, but we'll get her back. So Nixon, of course, she's rightly stated you have to be proactive. Yeah. But what other models are there to build up your career, despite the fact that you should also aim to develop yourself personally?
Okay, so you should always have a mentor.
Okay.
As you grow, the base is knowledge is enough, ability is enough. As you grow, they are not enough.
Okay.
You need to have somebody who will help you navigate the challenges of work. And those ones you can only gain through the relationship you have with most experienced people to guide you. Okay. Use your network. If you look at the research that has been done, in most cases, they will tell you about over 80% of people that they've spoken to says their networks have helped them to find jobs or to advance their career within a particular setting. So always make sure you have the right network with you so that you can advance your career, leverage on that to advance your career.
All right, so I think we have Nelson from Tamale who also want to pose this question. Nelson, what question do you have for our HR experts?
Yes, mine is just a contribution, a very snap contribution.
All right.
Yeah, so basically the issue of mentorship, it's you, the mentee, the starting point should be learning to, the work that you do, learning the skills very well and being very good at what you are doing. That is an added skill that you bring on board when you connect with your mentee. I just wanted to indicate that. So your skill set and doing what you are doing very well.
Great.
What would also
Great. Nelson, we're grateful for your inputs there. The fact that you should be best at what you do. And I saw you grinning, Irene. And of course, it's quite natural because we have seen your success story. We have seen your personal growth. So once again, I just want to chip in this part of you being now heading the BBC News HR department. What does this bring to you in your personal career growth?
A brilliant opportunity, right? I think I'm excited about the opportunity and really just cementing the last 25 years of my career and being able to help an organization really achieve their goals. I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to whatever that will bring, working with a great team and a great organization.
And of course, we're so grateful that you could join this discussion, Irene. We're grateful once again. And I hope that we did take some notes out of your submission. Many thanks and all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you so much.
I want to end with you, Nixon. So your closing statements, mentorship, connections, and personal growth.
So what I will tell viewers and career-minded people is that these are things that you need. Build the right connections and not just numbers. Look at the quality of the connections you are building. People who can add value to you and people you can add value to as well. Have a mentor, because if you want to go fast, they say go alone. If you want to go far, go with people.
Exactly.
So if you really want to get far, then you must have mentors, you must do with coaches, and that will advance your career. You can't do it alone. Training is never enough. Knowledge alone is never enough.
Nixon, we're so grateful for your inputs as well. Solid points that he shared with us on how to grow up the career ladder, the corporate ladder, and I believe that you did take some notes. I'm Charles Aite. Many thanks for being a part of this, and I believe you took some notes. Enjoy the rest of our bulletin.